Hi, I'm Becca.
Hi, I'm Emma.
And this is
Life in Quarters.
So a video came up on my For You page with this woman asking the crowd, are there any dainty women out there? And are you naturally dainty? Or is this something that you have to do on purpose? Because she did not consider herself to be a dainty woman. People in the comment section didn't consider themselves to be dainty women. There were pictures of The Rock wearing a dress, or just really buff men with dresses on. And they're like, this is me. And it made me think that yes, women can be, or women or people even, can be naturally dainty. That's just your essence of who you are. But I do think that daintiness and gentleness kind of go hand in hand. Where, I think that in order to be dainty, you also have to be able to achieve some type of gentleness. Because, I don't consider myself to be dainty. Some people who don't know me very well might, but I think that I considered myself to be a little bit more dainty once I started implementing gentleness practices into who I am and how I approach things. Which if you're hearing me say gentleness and you're like, what the hell does that even mean? What is gentleness? How my therapist explained it to me is vulnerability, being vulnerable, approaching things without having a threat attached to it, being you better call me or else. That's not gentleness. That's not daintiness.
Really?
So,
sorry.
I know, big shocker. But it made me think of today's conversation, which is about breaking down that wall. And I feel like a lot of us who consider us to not be dainty, to not be soft, to not be gentle, it's because there's a big ass wall up.
I have so many thoughts about that on your FYP because I just haven't seen any of that, which is also not shocking because I'm always out of the loop on the things you're seeing on social media. What do they mean by dainty? The teensiest of signbars, because I feel like I'm missing what we're striving for. I feel like I'm not understanding the picture.
What do you think of when you think of dainty? And also, I'll tag the creator's video in the show notes if you would like to see the video that came on my For You page.
Maybe, because that was I don't know. I feel like I think of sundresses and flowers when I think of dainty, but I don't think
I agree. I think dainty can be an aesthetic, but I think in the sense of how we're talking about it, in this context of how do you be dainty, versus don't worry, man, I got it. How do you be dainty?
Okay,
and I think that it's vulnerability.
So by dainty, that's what. Okay, that makes sense. I'm understanding. I'm clocking what you're saying now. By dainty, they're implying being more vulnerable, dainty on an emotional level.
I don't think so. I think it was also aesthetical as well, because I think it's all the things, and I'm kind of glad that you don't get it because I feel like it's so hard to miss, or not hard.
I'm so glad
you're
an
idiot.
So
stupid. No, I could definitely imagine someone else listening to this being like, what's she talking about?
I know, yeah. I was what does this mean?
Because I think that for me, I am aesthetically dainty in a lot of scenarios, but I think that personality-wise, I ruin it. I come in like a hammer, like a jackknife, and I'm not dainty anymore. But I think that implementing more gentleness practices into my life have softened me up. I think it has made me more dainty overall.
I would agree with that. I am interested because I don't really understand it. Am I dainty?
No.
Okay. This is why in what ways am I not? So I know going into this conversation.
Here's the thing. I think that you are... because I would class you as dainty in some ways, but not really.
Yeah, that's why I was curious, actually.
It's you have too heavy of a step. I don't know how to... You're like whimsical. You're not dainty, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
What does that mean?
No, I just love
You look like that was
it was
me.
the too heavy of the step was so funny because fully like I think I've outed you about this on the podcast before. You talking about how like I take up so much space when I walk and being like you're like a golden retriever in a china shop. You're gonna seek out things to break. You're like a heat-seeking missile. You are step too heavy. It all just sounds like such an insult. And I know that's not how you mean it. I was like, I'm gonna keep that one.
I'm like, you
file.
just stomp on the ground. No.
You're like, you can't be dainty. You just like thomp, thomp, thomp. You're just walking too hard.
It's funny because I wouldn't classify you as dainty, but I wouldn't classify you as like not. You know what? Actually, I don't even know if I can say that because you said, "Am I dainty?" And immediately before you even finished the sentence, I went, "No."
No, and I would agree. This is why I'm trying to like understand what the main consensus is on this vision of dainty, I suppose.
Okay, so dainty is twofold:
Okay.
aesthetic, personality as well,
Yes,
working together,
okay.
combined.
I think aesthetically, sometimes I'm dainty. That's very intentional, and sometimes I'm very much not dainty. If I'm in a sundress, flower crown kind of mood, I feel like that's dainty. But I vacillate
I
hard.
think dainty is a way to move. Oh, you know what? I think it is. I think I associate dainty with graceful. I think I put those two together, and I associate them with each other. But I don't necessarily know if you have to be graceful to be dainty.
That's so funny, because for me, saying that, I was actually like, oh, I actually wouldn't put dainty and graceful together. I'd put like dainty and coquette together. I feel like dainty is like tea party and like coquette things like bows and flowers and like small.
And I think you have to be graceful to be dainty. You know what?
don't
Let me
know.
look up. Honestly, we're too literal for this type of
love
conversation.
this.
I feel
Yeah,
I
I
need
know.
a definition. I need a definition of dainty. And this
Yeah.
intro, you guys, I'm so sorry it's so long.
I
but
actually,
I'm almost
I hope you
confused.
guys like it. Don't blame me. You said something kind of confusing.
Okay, definition of dainty. It's an adjective, but it can be a noun. I'm going to read you the noun one later, but it's not relevant.
I want to know though.
Adjective.
Okay.
Delicately small and pretty. And then number 2 is fastidious or difficult to please, typically concerning food.
I was gonna
A dainty appetite.
I was gonna say dainty with delicate. Actually, I think that's why I was curious more about what the definition, like what the goal, I guess, of being like
Yeah.
a dainty person was, because I was like, I don't necessarily want to be a delicate person, but I can I can agree absolutely with the like gentleness leading into a more like delicate approach to emotionality, and I like that. I think a delicate approach to being emotional with people is absolutely like what the theme of the episode is, and learning how to have that dainty or delicate approach to interacting with other people and letting them see more of the truth of like who you are, I think.
The goal of this episode is to explore the fact that like intimacy and closeness and relationships and just like general vulnerability in life is a skill that you can learn. And having that emotional wall up is a skill that you can unlearn.
So the 4 quarters for today's episode are: number 1, what is your wall made of? We all definitely have a wall that we've got up protecting ourselves. What is it made of? What experiences led you to putting up that wall? Our second quarter is the need. That's kind of when the wall becomes a roadblock, and a very obvious one, and then you realize you have to address it. And so like, what is that moment for you? What is that process like? Our third quarter is flourishing, or like the want of taking down the wall even further. So now it's less of a roadblock and more choosing to take the scenic route instead of the highway, like smelling some flowers, enjoying the small things in life, maybe opening up in scarier ways that'll inevitably make closeness more special. And then our fourth quarter is any of your wall worth keeping? Because like, is any of it protecting you in ways that should stay up? Is any of it valid in who you are as a person, or is it all worth taking down?
Starting with quarter 1, Emma, what is your wall made of?
I'd say my wall is probably made of titanium or like diamond, whatever is the hardest. I feel like it's not diamond. I feel like that's like too sparkly. But as I was thinking
That's too
about,
glitzy.
but I kind of like, I don't hate diamond anymore, because I was also thinking about the fact that my wall kind of has a chameleon effect to it because so much of it is built in people pleasing, and diamonds kind of refract the light and they can kind of become whatever like color they need to be. But let me explain the actual origin stories of my wall. Because I think in a more literal sense, my wall absolutely came up when my grandpa died. Because my grandpa died when I was 5 years old. And it's really funny. I was actually just talking about this with my therapist in our last session. And I just have such a crystal clear memory of the funeral and all of that, and the sense and understanding that I wasn't the center of the universe. Because I think for kids, that wall's not up. Like I get to see it with all of my kids where it's like there's just a curiosity and a vulnerability to all of them, and we are not naturally built with that wall. We just want to understand things and connect with people. And then I think interacting with the world and the hardship and maybe the cruelty of some aspects of life, like make that wall come up in a natural way of protecting yourself. And so I think like when my grandpa died, everybody was absolutely trying their best, but grief is really hard. And I was 5 years old and my mom had a 1-year-old and a newborn baby. And my dad was incredibly depressed because his dad had just died. And I think my sister was probably going through something similar to me. But yeah, I felt an immense loneliness because I absolutely was not the center of anyone's universe, to no fault of anyone's. But yeah, as a 5-year-old, I think that's really difficult to understand, and also understand that like I had just lost my best friend, because my grandpa absolutely was my best friend, and not really understanding what that meant, and just feeling hurt in a way that I couldn't understand. And I felt that wall starting to get built up slowly and slowly. And then at the exact same time, I was starting kindergarten. And again, I get to see this with the kids I nanny. Kindergarten's a really brutal place because as a kid, you are the center of the universe. That's how you view yourself. That's your opinions are paramount to everyone else's. Your parents are generally doing what you want to do because like you're the center of their universe. And in kindergarten, every kid is the center of the universe. And so you're butting heads with people that don't know how to regulate their emotions, and kids are mean, intentionally mean to you. And kids were intentionally mean to me because I think probably because I had just experienced that loss, and also like I had these 2 younger brothers that were little babies, and I'd just like not been the baby immediately, and twofold. I was really trying to connect with people in a very abrasive, overbearing way. And kids were mean about it. Like I remember one time in like there was like sharing class, like you'd read one of your journal entries, and if you were like the special one that got to read it that day, you got to say like your big want or like something special that happened. And there was this one girl that I really wanted to be my friend in kindergarten, and I remember saying for like my special moment that I'd waited all kindergarten to say, I was like, I just really want this person to be my friend. And then she stopped. The whole class went silent, and it was really sad and embarrassing, even as a 5-year-old. And then she went, I already am your friend. So, and I was like,
no, that's horrific.
so I think I learned, and I also like had my first crush in kindergarten, and I like went so hard into being like, oh, I like this person. I should tell this person I like this person. And I don't think any 5-year-old can be a creepy stalker, but I think I just was a 5-year-old being like, I want this person. And so I think I was met with a lot of backlash and pushback. And I learned pretty quick and all at the same time that like people pleasing and being amenable and like being what people want from you in any given moment is the best way to succeed in being accepted, I think was the message my 5-year-old brain was receiving at that time. And so I think, yeah, for the chameleon aspect of it, I don't know exactly what the material my wall is made of, but it's made of people pleasing and titanium, is what I would say.
I think it's funny that we don't know what your wall is made of, because I think that suits it as
Yeah,
well. Like, being
right?
like, I can't really put a label on it, what it's
Yeah.
made of, because I don't know. And I
Yeah.
do remember that. I remember in elementary school, you were so smiley and like
Yeah.
upfront and very just like get close. Like you were close to things.
Yeah.
It's my way of describing it. Like if I were to describe you, I'd be like, we're on the playground and you're like here, and I'm like, like
Real middle
like,
child behavior
oh.
is what that is.
Yeah, you're always there. And I even remember, like, Emma having a crush on this person was like was like a headline thing that everybody in the school knew. I cannot express that enough because, you know, Emma and I have known each other for this entire time that I remember on the playground being like, oh yeah, Emma's talking to that guy again. They're playing handball and like she's hovering. Like it was a thing that people talked about at school and everyone was like, oh, Emma has a crush on that guy. Everybody knows it. And I remember one time like talking to you and you were like, yeah, so what? You're like,
yeah. That was always my mentality about it. I was like, literally, I have a crush. I'm not being a weird stalker about it. Who cares? But
no, you were like super chill. You were like, and what?
I know, but people cared. So I think like
cared. It was like hot goss.
Yeah, it wore down on me because it really only lasted. Like there was always an underlying crush on that person for sure, but like in second grade, like I had a boyfriend, like that was not him. You know what I mean? So like,
did you? I feel like you didn't have a crush on him until later because I remember it being a thing when I was like running around, when we were in our Foursquare handball days, like maybe 5th grade. Maybe it just lingered that long. Because I feel like it was a running bit for a long time. But even when you were like, I no longer care about this situation, people were like, ooh.
It was a running bit for a really long time, but it was in kindergarten because I remember walking into Mrs. Snow and Miss Lindstrom's class, shout out, and like the like checkered floor and walking in and being like, and like whoosh, the wind blew back and the light changed. And I was like, so I think it was maybe perpetuated by having like an older sister who was like 4 years older than me. I just like knew what crushes were sooner. Maybe.
Yeah. You're like, I'm in the know. Yeah. And we're all like, what were you talking about? But also like, I think that it's so true, the fact that your peers encourage certain building of pieces of the wall that you build up. Because, like, everyone's so nervous, and the older you get, in specifically, like, the teen area, the more insecure everyone gets, the more guarded everyone gets, the more likely you are to feel inclined to hide parts of yourself that you think other people in your demographic will judge. And so I think that's very on the point. And it does start that young. It starts really young. Like I remember in my class, there were 2 girls that were like best friends and I wanted to be their friend. Yeah. But they were clearly best friends. You know what I mean? And like if you wanted to be their friend, you had to like nonchalantly, like it was like they were standing there like twins at a gate being like, and what can you offer? Like, you know?
Kindergarten's so brutal. I hate it. Elementary school is so despicable. It really is. Okay.
And, you know, I also think that my wall kind of started getting built up in that same age range just because of the energy in my household. So, like, certain parts of a personality are definitely encouraged. Like I grew up in a household where if you cried, like, if you were crying about something, it was like everyone point and laugh, like, ha, 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 like, oh, no, what are you going to do, cry? Like, it was really not encouraged. Like you had to lock that down. And also the words like stupid and dumb and just like implying that someone was less than everyone else in the household was also encouraged for certain things of just kind of like a knee-jerk reaction. You know what I mean? So I think that as a kid, I really wanted to have a valued personality. And by definition, that meant being harsher, like being the first one to bite before you got bit back. And like, I don't know, being quote unquote witty and like being funny in a way that is at the expense of somebody else. And it's all like in good fun. And just being generally harsher as well was definitely more valued. And in my household, the number one emotion that was like understood and respected was understood and not ridiculed was either intense anger or I guess happiness and excitement if you weren't too loud about it, like if you weren't annoying about it. And so like I think that part of my wall was like, oh, I have to be a hammer. Like I have to be a hammer, I have to be the axe because otherwise I'm gonna get got. And I kind of carried that with me in social situations, like as a kid. And I do think it was rewarded.
Absolutely.
In everything that I did as a child. Like being harsh, being focused, and all those things helped me in the sport that I started when I was 2.5 years old. Like I started being under immense pressure at like 6 when I won my first national title.
Yeah.
And then at 8, I went to my first world championships for baton twirling, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. And I feel like everything that I did encouraged me to be more focused and be less tolerant of other people's behaviors, and including my own behaviors, because it's one of those things where it's like, if someone's judging you harshly, like imagine how they're judging themselves. And that definitely applied to me. Like, I held myself to such a high standard that I just thought everybody held themselves to. I think it's funny to look back on the elementary school, middle school, high school experience, because I remember meeting you and like playing with you on the playground, and you embodied a lot of what I was keeping a lock on. And I was like, I remember watching this and being like, how can she be getting away with this? I was like,
lock her up.
Come up to me again, just like so close, being like, hi, like you're just so happy, so excited. And I was like, what's she so happy about? This is like serious business. Like, what's she doing?
I love seeing it from how you experienced it too, because I was thinking as you were talking about it, how perfect of a pair we were in so many different ways. Because I think about us as like a symbiotic relationship. Like, you're like the tree growing and I'm like the lichen around you that's like feeding it nutrients, but you're like the support system in that kind of way. Because I think as I was learning more and more to like people please and to kind of camouflage myself in different situations, like I was doing it unsuccessfully in elementary school, but I think it was perfect because like you knew what you wanted from people, and I was like, she has a vision for what she wants from me. Perfect, I can do that. I'm stoked. But I also like, it wasn't like I was subsumed into your personality either. I think there was like a kind of peace though. I'd also like, no, I think abrasiveness is the wrong word, but it's just the only word I can think of. Your candor, like your candidness about things, I think I really liked, because as a kid who didn't really know where I stood with a lot of different people, and where people would say one thing but mean another thing, I think it was really hard for me to like find my footing. And you just said what you meant. And I was like, this?
I couldn't help it. It was bad, actually. It was not great.
I loved it though, because it didn't hurt my feelings. Like, I was like, oh,
no,
I just know where she stands.
Me, actually. Like, here's the thing, too. I was so good at hurting people's feelings as a child. Like, I learned that skill super, super young. It was not uncommon for me to have a quote-unquote, like, regular conversation with someone and have them walking away in tears.
That's true.
And then I'd have to apologize for something that, like, I didn't really understand what I was apologizing for. I was like, I was just telling you how it is. But I was being mean. Okay, I was being mean. And every time I talked to Emma, I was being my meanest self half the time. And she was like, like, I just didn't I was like, and there she stands. Like,
that's so funny that you clocked that, because we haven't talked about this before. And I hadn't really even thought about it, but I imagine that's why I was so at ease around you. Because I was like, I 100% of the time know what she's actually feeling about me. I guess it's the way I currently feel about how I interact with the kids, where I'm like, it's nothing personal. This is just her honest feelings. Like, this is great. I just know the truth at all times and can interact in a way that makes sense to my brain, and it's fantastic.
And you know, and it was funny, like, going over to your house, because at my house, I was a superstar at my house, first of all, okay? Because, like, there were I knew exactly how to succeed in my household. I knew exactly what kind of behaviors would be rewarded and what behaviors would not be rewarded. And, like, we had fun and we laughed, but, like, you had to have a certain style about it. And I would go over to Emma's house, and it was full of just, like, chaos. Like, that's how we always tell a joke about how I snapped at one of your brothers, and I was like, stop. Like, so in the car. Funny. Like, they were in the back, and I was like, what did I even say? I was just like, knock it off or something.
You were sat between the two of them in like a Toyota Corolla, so it was like very close space, and they were like fighting about something, and you were like, knock it off. You're being too loud. And we were all like...
That was like my whole personality as a kid.
It was very funny. I loved it.
But the duality of it, because I feel like I always had a wall up. Like, we had a wall up through just most of our lives. I mean, the wall is still...
Yes, absolutely.
We'll get to that later, but like
we're kind of each other's kryptonite to the wall, is what I would say. Like, we're like,
I think so.
The exact right kind of personality that the wall just like is ineffective.
It's very true. And also,
Yeah.
I feel like the way that you are and the way that you behave was really helpful for me to witness, of you, like, you just being yourself in a lot of instances. That made me question if my wall was necessary all the time.
Yeah.
Which actually kind of segues us into quarter
Yeah.
two,
No, it's perfect.
which is the need. When do you recognize the need to take your wall down?
Yeah. When did you realize you needed to take your wall down? Because I think mine was much later in life than yours. I think my wall is like that is just recently, in the grand scheme of life, I think just started to happen for me.
I think I knew that my wall needed to come down really early. I think it took me a long time to figure out how to take it down. Like, I would say I recognized it being there probably in our senior year of high school.
Okay.
And that's why it was so important for me to witness you just like being yourself and not really having any repercussions to that, for me to be like, no, all right, well, maybe there aren't so many rules. Go ahead.
I just need to know if you're picturing the top hat when you say that. I feel like I can see
I
it.
am
in
picturing
No,
the top
I
hat.
knew. I could see it in your brain.
I am. We went to see the movie 12 Years a Slave.
Oh,
12
it
Years a
makes
Slave
it
in
so
high
much
school.
worse that I was like wearing a top hat to a field trip to see 12 Years a Slave.
Because Emma was in the IB program, and I was not, but I was friends with every single child in the IB program. We were 18. But they were all going to watch the movie for extra credit, and I was like, yeah, I'll go too. Emma shows up to my house wearing a black tank top, peplum top, with these leggings. They were black leggings. They were plain black leggings. And then these like black boots. They had heels on them for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're obsessed with heels still.
I love
And then
heels.
a top hat, a black top hat. And you had like red lipstick, like makeup done, you know?
It was a crazy fit, but it was an intentional fit.
It was crazy. It was intentional. Emma got ripped apart for it a little bit.
I did, but it was by someone that I didn't respect.
It was by people who like had opinions that don't matter, and we knew they didn't matter at that point. Or they didn't have that saw. They didn't get it. They didn't get the vision.
No. The vision was a mess.
And I mean, it was a mess. I think you showed up and they were like, why would you wear that?
And I was like, it's an outing. You always dress up to an outing. And I was like, this top hat, I have to style it somehow. I think I was really like, I have to style this top hat. And it was a mess. But
You were.
that was, sorry for the sidebar.
You were styling so much in high school, and I was not. But I think before I went to college, it reminds me of when, if you ever watched Gilmore Girls, when Rory and Paris Geller go to college, and Paris is like, nobody knows me here. Like, I could be anybody I want. That's exactly the thought process I had. I had never seen Gilmore Girls, though, at that point. But that's exactly my thought process. I was like, nobody knows me. Nobody associates me with, like, having a sharp tongue and tolerating zero, just, like, I don't know, quote, like, misbehaving or stupid questions. Like, I'm just so short and impatient with people. Like, that's the fiber of my being. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm gonna be so approachable. I'm gonna be so nice. Like, and then people will associate me with niceness. I could do that. And then I met someone who is now one of my very close friends. But I met this person, and I just couldn't help myself. I was like, I have to knock him down a peg. He has too much, just like, confident arrogance is the word I'm gonna use, because that's how it felt. I went, no, someone needs to knock this guy down. So I did. And I was like, well, there goes my whole she's so nice thing. I was like, dang, all right, whatever. But that's when I was like, okay, I need to work on this though, because it's one thing to have this be how I am and be chill with that. And then it's another thing to be like, and I can't help it. I can't help it. This is not something I have control over. And so I was like, if I want to make friendships that I have not had before, if I want to make these genuine friendships where I am like valued as a member of the friend group, like, I need to go about this differently. And so that, I think, is what motivated me to be more honest in the friendships. Be like, I am going to plan birthdays. I am going to express, like, compliments. Like, I think that was a big step for me, is giving people compliments. Yes. Which, you hear it and you're like, you didn't give people compliments? No. I did not give people compliments. I was really bad at giving compliments. It was like one of the hardest things. I always coupled it with a qualifier or something that just like essentially negated the compliment. It was a nightmare, you guys.
You were expert level at backhanded compliments. That was actually, I'm thinking back
I
to
was
like
so good at them.
AP environmental science, and like someone would walk into the room and backhanded compliment. And I was like, that's an excellent backhanded compliment you just gave.
And I didn't realize they were backhanded compliments either. Like, we did an assignment in 9th grade where you had to write a compliment on a piece of paper for everyone in the class, okay? And one of the compliments I wrote down was, I've heard you're smart. Why don't you act like it? That was my compliment. And I believed it was a compliment. And my teacher called me up to the front. So, like, she was like, let me talk to you about these. And she was reading my list, and she goes, Rebecca, these aren't compliments. And I was like, yeah, they are. Read them again. And she was like, none of these are, you have to try again. And I was like, this is the hardest assignment I've ever done. I was so bad at it. And I was genuinely trying. That's the worst part.
I mean, it's your wall. It was exactly what you were saying. Like, that wall was up. That wall, on the other side of that wall, there was another version of you that was like, bang, bang, bang. I know there's a compliment back here, but you couldn't get it through the wall.
And then I was reading compliments about me, because if everyone had to write a compliment, you know what I mean? I was reading compliments about me, and I was like, ugh. What am I supposed to do with this? I can't do anything with a compliment. Give me criticism so I can be better as a person. Like, I just didn't know what to do with that.
It is funny to me that despite the fact that our walls are like kind of different and built on like different grounds, the not enjoying receiving a compliment, not knowing what to do with it, I'm so very similar in that respect. My first proper boyfriend in high school one time called me out on it, and he wasn't a peach either. Like, he did so many things wrong. I was not the villain in this story ultimately. But at one point I said something like I said something nice where I was like, I really like you. You know, like high school stuff where I was like, I really like you. I like spending time with you. But that's the only compliment you're going to get. This is as much as I can give you. And he was really like, that's really all I'm going to get. Like, that's as much vulnerability as you can give. And like, I really took, like, that was a rude thing to say, objectively, but kids. But
was it?
Him to say.
Wait, who was rude?
He was rude.
Okay.
Him being like,
okay, cool,
that's really all you could do.
Yeah.
In a moment of clear vulnerability.
I'd be like, do you want me to lie to you?
No, or also like, I'm just trying to grow and learn in this moment. I've never been in a relationship before. But like the fear of like being vulnerable in that way was also like, that did resonate with me though when he said it. I was like, oh, because I'm thinking about it to this day, like a decade later.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh yeah, I actually can't. Like, I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and I just wanted to say something as simple as, I really like talking to you. And I said, our conversations have a positive impact on my day. Instead, I like it too, but I had to be like so clinical, so clinical and around. I was like, you objectively don't impact my day negatively, and I need you to know that. It was more similar to that.
I like it.
I mean, of course you do for similar.
You put a little seasoning on it.
But I can't. I was like, just being like, I need help, or I like talking to you. No, all of that's far too vulnerable. So I think it's interesting that like our foundations are very different, but like they did lead to a similar kind of place in regards to positive reinforcement in either direction.
And I think that college was like extremely pivotal for my personality and personal growth, because there were a lot of situations that just absolutely forced me to lock in and grow a bit. Like with the whole kind of, it feels like a humiliation ritual, I guess. Like I majored in economics, and at some point it got too dang hard for me. I think it was intermediate microeconomics actually was the class that got me. And the teacher was really smart, but smart in a way that meant he couldn't translate it in a simple enough way for me to grasp what he was trying to say to me. And I was like, dang, this is really hard for me. And on day one, I said to this guy who sat around me, I was like, do I know you from somewhere? Because he looked familiar to me. And he swiveled his chair around and he went, I look like the Kennedys. Like, I've been told I look like the Kennedys. And I went, no, that's not it. And then he turned back around. But then the next class, he sat next to me. And I was like, he seems to know what's going on. Maybe I'll study with him. So I asked him, I was like, do you want to study the homework together? Because I didn't know what the homework was, and I was like, I need a study partner. So I went over to his place. It was awful. I met a bearded dragon for the first time, and I recoiled aggressively when he asked me if I wanted to hold it. And also, his house was disgusting, and then I had my friend call me so that I could leave early.
Slay.
I just had a bad time. And it was, like, so bad that I decided, you know what, I will go to the tutoring center, which felt like the worst thing possible because, like I said, my household valued not being stupid, and this was me going, I'm stupid. I'm an idiot, I guess. Like, that was how it felt to me. It felt like I was announcing
like
that
needing help
to myself. It was like undeniable proof that I was a moron. And I was like, no, this is a horrible experience. But I hated this guy. I hated this guy that I tried to study with. And he was so mean. Like, I was like, oh, how did you get that? And he was like, what, you don't know how to do it? And so I hated him. And I was like, I'm gonna go because I hate this guy. And so I went to my next class and he said, do you want to study together again? And I said, no, I'm going to the tutoring center after class today. So guess who shows up to tutoring? This dude. I hated him. And so I go in, I sit down, he sits down next to me, and I'm thinking, you don't need help with the homework. What are you doing here? I don't know, but he was on my last nerve. And so the tutor came over. Ugh, a goat of a tutor. Okay, he tutored me for the rest of school. But he came over. And he was like, hey guys, how you doing? Like, what class are you here for? What do you need help with? So I told him the class. I showed him the problem. And he said, okay, yeah, this, and this. Like, do you know what this is? And this other dude chimes in, the guy I hate, and he goes, yeah, of course we know what that is. Like, that's so this, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh my God, do you not know what that is? And I was like, I had so much rage in my heart. And then the tutor looked at him and went, okay, I'm glad you know what it is, but I'm not talking to you right now, and this is a problem that she needs help with. And I was like,
what a guy.
What a guy. And I was like, I trust you with my life. And so I think that was a huge growth moment for me because I had one guy on one side being like, you're dumb if you don't understand what this is. And then I had someone on the other side being like, hey, let's walk it through. No problem. Like, we are in a tutoring center and this other person just needs to stick a sock in it. And oh my gosh, love that guy to this day.
I'm so thrilled that you got to have that, like, that tutor in your life, because the original guy is so, like, exemplary of what your wall was already made of. Like, being told that if you're asking for help, you deserve to be punished. Just like, not in those words exactly.
He was classic.
Exactly. And, like, I also love that you were receptive to the tutor, because I think sometimes when people have a wall built up like that and about those things, that you lean more on what you're comfortable with, which would have potentially been this guy just kind of being a dickhole. Excuse my French. But I'm really happy that, like, the tutor was there to reaffirm the fact that asking for help is not only important, but powerful. Like, it was like, this is a special moment.
It absolutely was. And, like, I remember truly the literal only reason I stuck it out and I went with it and I kept showing up to the tutoring center in the beginning was because I knew I was going to fail. Otherwise, I knew that the undeniable failure of not passing that class was my only other option. I was not going to figure it out by myself. Like, I tried my best. It didn't work. It just wasn't clicking. So I needed to be in that tutoring center or I was going to publicly fail, undeniably. Yeah. So I was like, which one do we want? And then I found out that the thing that I perceived to be failure, aka getting help, was not failure at all.
Yeah, how did that, like, because you got to be in the tutoring center for so much of college. And I actually remember, like, when we talk about the tutoring center, it was always such, like, a positive thing. Like, you'd light up. It'd be,
yes, I love
such
the
a beautiful
center.
thing for you. Did you feel in the moment or in retrospect, like, the impacts of that in, like, your dynamics with your friends and, like, being able to ask for help from other people? Like, did that have any, like bleeding out into those areas?
I found out that asking for help could be rewarded, and so it wasn't something to, like, be ashamed of or hide or look down on someone else for needing either, and that's a really big one. I think is learning that if somebody needs help, you should not be like, oh, well, I didn't need help to do that thing, blah, 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 blah. If I can do it, you should be able to do it. What are you, stupid? What are you, dumb? Like, that should not be our first instinct. No. And so I think having this experience made me be like, hey, maybe you can ask for help earlier. Like, maybe you don't have to only ask for help when you need a lifeline. Like, maybe if something gets tough and someone can help, you can just ask for help because it'll help relieve the pressure in a lot of situations. Not to be like, take advantage of everyone and ask for help for everything.
No.
Because I know we can swing hard in one direction, but you can ask for help and have it not be life or death.
Yeah, I love that. And no, I didn't even think that that's what you meant. I just think like that's such a fantastic lesson that I am actively trying to learn. I was going to say for me that's something I still have a hard time with. But I think for like when my need started, it was also in college. But I realized that it was a roadblock because it was getting in the way of my acting. So it was less like now in life currently I'm learning to be like, oh, you can just ask people for help, as hellacious and horrible and gut-wrenching as that sounds to me as I say it. I know it's the healthy option.
Disgusting.
I know that my loved ones want me, in fact, to lean on them and ask for help. I think that's true for most people. But I think the first time I realized that I had a wall up, because my wall being so chameleon-esque, I think I didn't even realize that there was a wall up. I think I was just being one. I'm realizing that it's really intense compartmentalization. That like the way I present myself to different people is just like really intense compartmentalization. So I'm wondering if the wall just changes shape based on the viewer. But I realized it first when I realized I couldn't access vulnerability for acting. I think this is in a few different moments in acting school. I think the first one was like, I knew that I should be able to access the level of vulnerability that the character was experiencing, because in my day-to-day life, like in my moments alone, like that was something I did experience. Like if I was somebody that didn't cry regularly, it would not have been something that I think I noticed that I wasn't accessing. But I am someone that cries a lot. I cry pretty freely and I cry about a lot of things. And when I'd get on stage or in front of a camera, I couldn't cry. And it would piss me off to no end. And so there was a moment in like my 6th semester when it happened. And then there was a moment in my 8th semester when I really like, it was the first time I think there was ever a crack in the wall. So I could see the wall because there was kind of a hole poking through it. I was in class and I was doing a monologue about a subject very close and personal and triggering for me. And my teacher suggested that I, in the performance, do something also very triggering. And I did it, and it didn't really feel like anything. I just was doing the monologue, and I finished it, and I looked around the room, and everyone was crying. And I was like a little confused, and then my friend Michael came up to me because he was in that class, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I kind of hugged him, and I didn't really cry because I don't think I really understood, but in that moment, I understood what vulnerability was to me and how I perceived it, and it was being ugly. I think I was like, oh, that monologue worked because I was just being honest about this as the character, and also like letting myself and my own faults bleed into it. And yeah, I took that away and I was like, oh, to me, vulnerability, because I had been working really hard on figuring out like what vulnerability meant, because acting teachers throw it around all the time. They're like, you have to be vulnerable, you have to access your vulnerability. And I was like, I don't know what you mean by that. It was like our dainty conversation earlier. I was like, what do you mean by that word? I'm confused. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I feel vulnerable. Like when I feel vulnerable, I feel ugly. And I think that was such an interesting moment for me. And it wasn't like, I didn't see it as a problem either, which is another fascinating aspect of it, because it's been this journey this whole time where I'd try and get that in acting, where I was like, oh, I know what I'm trying to get from this. I'm trying to feel ugly, and I understand the implications of that are like being vulnerable is not ugly, but to me I was like, oh, showing failure, because for me, like I hold myself to this level of perfection for all people, because if I fail anyone on an individual level, like I am a failure because I'm so constantly trying to serve other people. And so those moments of vulnerability when I embody space as an actual person make me feel so uncomfortable, and just being perceived makes me feel so like ugly. I'm like, oh, I failed you because I have even like taken up any space around you. And I think that was the first time that I even realized in a really true sense, because it shows up in my poetry also, like me being in a cage or in a box and stuff like that showed up before I understood it consciously. But that moment during that monologue, I think is when I really realized that like the wall was a problem that was going to need to be dealt with for the betterment of my acting. And with all big lessons in life, I overcome them first for my acting, second for me. So, you know, we get there in the end.
Hearing you talk about how vulnerability made you feel ugly connects so many dots for me, because like I remember when we were in high school and you were obsessed with taking selfies.
That's true.
You were always taking selfies, always taking pictures. Like you were the first in front of a camera at all times. However, if someone took a photo of you and you thought it was ugly, or they caught you off guard and they were trying to do a candid pic and you thought it was ugly, you would make them delete it. And not in a like, oh my God, delete it. Wait, like in a, I'm going to watch you delete this off of your device or it's going to eat away at me for the rest of the day. Like you were horrified about it. And I remember you explained it as like, if I'm famous, like I don't want an ugly photo to come out of me too. Like I don't want
Is that what I said?
like this to come back and haunt me. Like you said that stuff. You're like, oh no, I just can't have that out there. I just can't have a picture like that of me accessible.
So fascinating. I now
And
like
I
revel
remember
in
thinking
the ugly.
like, I was like, it's not that serious. Like you need to calm down or something. But at the same time, like I never associated that with a wall. Like when you looked at your personality type, it makes sense that we didn't recognize that you had a wall up, because you didn't have a classic wall up personality. You weren't like, ooh, I'm so harsh, I'm so tough, I'm so like me. Basically, you saw me and you went, oh, that angry little girl that's irritated with everyone who asks her a dumb question and hates the thought of somebody hugging her. Oh, I wonder if she has a wall up. Like you were bubbly, you were bouncy, you didn't mind when people hugged you. Like you didn't mind. Oh, you were like, yay, I'm the people's princess. Like who would have thought that you had a wall up? That was you. And I was like the angry henchman following you around. Like that's how it was.
I like in our two different versions. I'm like, you were the tree and I was the lichen, and you were like, you were the people's princess and I was the angry little henchman. Like we both think so lowly of ourselves in these scenarios.
Where's the confidence? It wasn't there.
It's not there. It's not there. No.
It did not exist.
I think that's really fascinating, because I actually hadn't made that specific connection myself, because I do, and I still do love taking selfies. But yeah, I was really averse to an ugly picture, and that just got like immersion therapied out of me at AMDA, because you're gonna look ugly on camera 10 times out of 10. That's just how that's gonna be. I think my whole process with college, AMDA is the college I went to. The whole process with me in college was like embracing the ugly more and more, but only in regards to acting. Like this wall of mine, like I am so fascinated by it, because I actually, when I think about it, the image that comes to my mind is like a turtle that's had its shell cracked open. It's like that's what happened when I did that monologue, where I was like, oh, we see the fleshy underbelly now. It wasn't just the shell the whole time. That actually wasn't the thing itself. It was the little gooey part underneath. Sorry, turtle. Didn't mean to crack open your shell.
Yeah, I know. I have a tortoise. Don't scare him like this.
I said turtle.
Turtles and tortoises are synonymous. A tortoise is a turtle, but a turtle is not a tortoise.
It's the square rectangle thing. I knew. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. I should have been better.
You are.
I'm
sorry. And you're stupid, and you need to build your wall out of that statement we just said right now. Build it back up. Do it.
My therapist is going to be so mad at you. I'm going to tell him tomorrow, and he's going to be pissy.
You know what? Tell him hi for me. I love that guy. But I feel like our approaches to taking down our wall as a result of a need are very different. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like for me, I recognized that my wall was an issue, and I was like, I gotta take this down somehow. But my wall was so strong. I was like, how do I do this? How can I disassemble it? Like, it just wasn't clicking for me. I didn't know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then when I finally found that brick I needed to remove, I was like, how many of these come out with this one brick? How many can I push over? And it was kind of a like efficiency thing almost, of like, I'm taking this lesson and I'm applying it to everything possible.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like you were so meticulous with it. I feel like maybe your wall is not as strong as my wall, but because it's built so intentionally. It's like you went, which brick in this section do I need to remove to accomplish the thing that I want to do? And then you pushed that brick out and you went, for now, perfect. That's what I needed. And I can get through that little hole perfect.
No, I actually really like what you're saying, because when you said it wasn't as strong, not in any sort of competition way, I'm not going to disclaim it. It's fine. It's fine. when you said it wasn't as strong, I was thinking, I was like, oh, my wall's pretty strong. Because I think of it like, I don't even think of bricks. I think of like steel. I really do when I see it. But I like the way you're saying it because I think the intentionality is so toxic, and that is very accurate. I think I'm like, what? The wall, we love her. We're going to keep her up. What?
Yeah, you love your wall.
love my
you
wall.
always have.
But if it's getting in the way of my acting, we have to remove the pieces that are blocking that, because I absolutely like worked on my vulnerability, but only in regards to acting, because I did that like 15 days of really dramatic cold reads where I was like, I have to be able to access this, otherwise I'm not going to be able to be the actor I want to be. And so I really like hammered that in, and I was able to access vulnerability and asking for help and being messy and having emotions that I would deem undesirable for myself in acting, and only in acting. And I got really good at accessing that for that specifically. And I can't really fully wrap my head around accessing them for myself in life right now.
You know what? I think you built your wall and you went, Picasso, I love it. Like, that's what you did. I think I built mine out of mud and necessity. I was like, okay, we'll just do this, and then I'll get harsher and harsher, and all I need is for this wall to be somewhat strong, I think, and that's good, and that'll be my personality. And you were like, oh God, I'm a genius. Oh, I'm such a genius. Like, that's how you see your wall.
I wonder
you like admire your handiwork.
I think I do, because you definitely see that like in my poetry. There's definitely a level of like praise that I give to like the intense
yeah, you're like, God, I'm so
like I really ate it up
like
with
that.
this wall, and like that's not how I
You
feel
do.
like emotionally in my heart, but I definitely think like I'm wondering if that's why we can't really figure out what it's made of in this metaphor. I'm wondering if it's the bits and pieces that I've picked up, and it is a bunch of different components that I've like crafted into this like art piece in my brain.
I don't know. I think that you want. Okay, this is gonna sound mean, right?
Slay. I'm excited.
Everyone, calm down for
I'm
a bit.
excited.
It's gonna sound mean, but I feel like you really, really want your wall to be special, and you know how I feel about things that are special. Like I feel like it's important to you that your wall is a bit of a masterpiece, because it helps you defend it a bit more. It helps you. Like kind of what I said before, which is like, if you frame it as you put so much effort into crafting together these bits and pieces that you found, then that makes it more unique. It makes it more special. It makes it more unreplicatable, and then you don't want to take it apart, because you put so much work and effort into it, and it's so beautiful, and it's something that your mind created. And I think that tying it to being special, to being this mixed matched work of art, is toxic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Does that mean? I couldn't tell.
No, I don't think it was mean. I think if I did not agree with it, I would say that I didn't agree with it.
You'd be like, you bitch.
Yeah, this is why we work so well. This is what we were talking about in the elementary school aspect, where I was like, no, I just think that that's accurate. I was actually just talking about this with another friend, that I think the tricky part.
You have other friends?
I know, how crazy.
Just kidding.
I know, horrible. Horrible. I was talking about this with my therapist and also with another friend recently, where I definitely think there is a specialness that I hold for my wall, and there's a level of me holding on to it very, very tightly, because when I was in my session last week, I was being asked about, I don't remember exactly what the question was, but basically about the wall and like who I am beyond it, or like when it went up, or like, have I always been this person, or something to that effect. And I was like, I just think that that's a chicken and the egg kind of situation. And I was like, I think even though this wall, whatever we're going to call it, right now we're calling it a wall, but even though this wall, this front, whatever I'm putting on, is manufactured to a certain degree, there's also the element of it that's not. Like that is just a true representation of how I have experienced the world, and the harm that has been done and the good that has happened. And I think for me, there's a level of sacredness to it. And I think like it is hard, because I think like that's something I think that can be true. I think multiple things in this situation can be true, is that like there can be a sacredness, especially for the fact that like the wall has been what's kept me safe. And it has what's gotten me this far. And I do have a beautiful life. And so much of that is due to the fact that that wall is there. And so much of the wall is a true reflection of who I actually am in a way that like I have been unable to express with my own words. I think like the being, like you seeing that of my wall, I think made me feel very seen actually just now. But I think, thank you. No, but I think that's, I think there's a level of like, I wouldn't exactly say it's like me needing it to be special, but I would say that like it is a sacred thing to me, where I was like, that wall is very sacred to me, I think. And I actually think that that kind of ties into flowing into the want for me, quarter 3, if it's okay to segue right now, because I think
so.
Yeah, I was reading the sci-fi book that I really like. It's the Fortuna Nova Vita Protocol. I highly, highly recommend it. It's bisexual space pirates. It's the best trilogy. I love it. But there's one character, and his name is Corvus, and I'll try and not spoil anything. But he's a lot like kind of how I am underneath the presentation. Because it was funny because I was talking to my friend Nico about it, and he was like, I thought you'd relate more to Scorpia, who is the main female character, who is more out there and kind of messier in certain ways. And I was like, oh no, actually I way more relate to Corvus, who is just trying to be like this perfect sibling and this perfect person and this perfect everything, and then like not letting any humanity break through for fear of it negatively impacting anyone. And it was funny because I had said that to him, and then I was reading the next book, and in that next book Corvus did have the realization that him not letting people in was making it so he couldn't effectively help his siblings. Like he couldn't connect with them. He couldn't be an actual human with them. And my therapist actually just said there's something very similar, where it's like, I am here and I'm talking to people, but like I can't touch them and they can't touch me, which is such a like a Corvus moment. And I think like reading that in the book, and then also feeling like right before I went to therapy, I was feeling just like really scared because I was getting really depressed again, and I didn't know what to do about it. And between those two moments, I think I just realized I was like, I want to take this wall down now. So I guess for me, actually, the wall, like the want of taking down the wall is less the slowing down. And like now I'm kind of getting to that moment where I'm like, letting people in. I hate that idea, but I think it's important. I'm so resistant to all good things that require vulnerability. I despise them in such an extreme way. But I think like for me, the want has been wanting to trust my loved ones the way they trust me. I think as a, I don't know, a reciprocal expression of love and humanity, I guess.
Vulnerability is so tough.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason for the wall, is to not be vulnerable. I feel like any wall is protecting the ability or the perception that we can be vulnerable. And I think that like these days, vulnerability is actually really hard to achieve, because it's hard to tell what is vulnerability. Like, what is that? I mean, you and I are talkers. Like, you ask me, I'll tell you. Like, I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you way more than you want to know. That's not being vulnerable. Yeah. Some people think it is. Oversharing is not vulnerability.
No.
Although it can backfire, and you do think, dang, I felt like I was vulnerable in that moment, and you did not accept me for what I said, and that was super embarrassing for all parties involved, and by all parties, I mean me. But
no, that was something I was thinking of in the opposite direction, is that it's really hard to know like what is and is not vulnerable, because one, like oversharing to try and gain connection with people is like, that's not vulnerable, because also typically when you're oversharing, it's not something that you feel is the gooey underbelly of your soul. Mm-mm. But also,
no,
I get caught up in this a lot too, where I get worried that if I'm going to be vulnerable, that I'm just like trauma dumping, which is just like me being like, I had like, but like that's not always the case either. So there's all of these parameters, and we're also worried about either sharing too much or sharing too little. And I do think it's like the want for me has been a fun like excavation. I've been having a really interesting time doing like experiments and seeing like what is and is not vulnerable to me. Because like I'm similar to you, where it's like if you ask, I'll probably answer. Like at that point, I like it's not a vulnerable thing for me because I'm like having a conversation about it. But like the vulnerable moments are like the thing that just kind of happened about the wall where you were like, I feel so special to you. Like me being like, oh no, I do think that that's a really sacred thing. Like that felt like vulnerability to me in that moment. So it's cool seeing like what does and does not feel like vulnerability in practice.
Brainwave.
Right.
I think that vulnerability is not qualifying your statement with a disclaimer or with something that is meant to distract from the actual point. So like when I was in therapy and because like I wanted to be more vulnerable with my husband, like that was hard. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, my parents, if you knew my parents, they're divorced. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know about that. But like I picked up some habits that I didn't realize was me like reaching out, but in a way that's like, and I'm going to make a fist so that you don't think you can take advantage of me. Yeah. Like it was very, very cautious, very worried, very like, I don't want to be vulnerable because like, then you can embarrass me. Like, what if I'm vulnerable with you and then you embarrass me? Like, no. And one of the most common things I see, which is an avoidance of vulnerability and ultimately like a self-fulfilling prophecy type of statement is like, if you ever like do this thing, then I'm gonna be mad and there will be hell to pay. Like a threat with a want. Like you can just say, oh, I would love it if you would do this thing. You don't have to be like, and if you don't, it'll rain hellfire. Like we don't have to do that. Like if it's with someone you love, if it's with someone you care about, if it's with someone who you want to build a life with and all these things, like you can just ask for things. Like for me, I had to ask my therapist for examples. She was like, Rebecca, you need to be more vulnerable. And I was like, girl, I don't even know what you're talking about right now. She was like, you need to practice gentleness. And I was like, ew, what even is that? Like, what's all these things you're telling me now? Like, how do I even do that? And she was like, you have to. And I went, right, but that's not my question. Now my question is, what do I even say? Like, I need a specific example that I can put into practice. And at the time, my husband and I were long distance. And she goes, well, you can just message him and be like, I'd love it if you called me today. Ugh. I hated that. She said that and I went, gross. That feels like giving up ground on the court.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up ground on the court. And she's like, what are you even talking about, girl? I was like, I don't know. It feels like I'm losing, though. Whatever that is. It feels like I've lost.
Yeah.
And so I've said it. And I started I started practicing the phrases that she was telling me to do. And in doing that, I was like, I'm being rewarded.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was being gentle with my husband, and he was like, oh my gosh, this is so lovely, and I feel so loved, and like, I don't know, everything that I wanted to achieve, like I was achieving now with opening myself up to being vulnerable. I'm like getting so warm right now. Like, I'm like, I feel like I'm being vulnerable right now. I'm like, oh, my body temperature is going up really high. But like, that was one of those moments that I think that I didn't have to, like I was already married, like I already had a relationship. I didn't have to work on taking down more of my wall, especially a part that I was like, no, gross, I don't want to touch that section. That section can just be there. Tell him he needs to be different. Like, not me. It's not me. It was me. I was ruining it for myself. And I was doing it in a way that made me feel in more control. And I was like, dang, this wall. I didn't know that you were being like this. And yeah, that was hard and I hated it, but it was good, and it definitely has enriched my life more, and I'm still working on it now, but
yeah. No, I have many thoughts on that. Like, in what ways has it enriched your life more? I'm curious about that. And then, just in case I forget, so that you can remind me, I was going to say that, like, I forgot what it was. So just tell me, in what ways has it enriched your life more, and it'll come back.
I think it's made me be able to be more relaxed because I don't feel like I have to approach people with a shield at the same time. A shield and a knife. I don't have to be like, I would like something from you, but if you say no, I have prepared myself to not be embarrassed. Like, I have protected myself from rejection preemptively. So I think that it's just overall made me a little bit more chill
Yeah.
in my interactions, and has also, I think that's, with our opening chat about daintiness, I think that it has made me a bit more dainty.
Yes.
It's taken more weight off of my shoulders and has allowed me to be taken care of in ways that I didn't think I could be for a long time.
Yeah. No, I like that because I was also thinking about how oftentimes we are doing these things that put us in control and make things feel easier because they feel safer, but like not doing them is always like easier in the long run. Because I mean, being vulnerable is rightfully terrifying. Like that is you saying, I trust you not to hurt me. And like that's a scary thing to do biologically for any kind of animal or any kind of human. So I understand why we do it. But similarly, in my therapy, it's been me saying things where I feel ugly and then being accepted. I think that has been what it's been for me, where you were getting, when you said the positive reinforcement thing, I was like, oh, that's kind of what's been happening for me recently, where you were saying these things and being gentle. And I always think of the giving up ground on the court. Whenever I think about gentleness or vulnerability, ever since you said it, I remember how horrified you were. And also like I've had
disgusted.
an epiphany at the same time.
I was so pissed.
Yes.
I remember calling you and being like, you want to hear the worst thing ever?
Oh, and this is the thing I forgot to say is that it's always so frustrating when the wall takes you by surprise. Because I was literally in therapy the other day and I could not say the phrase, I'm angry. Like I kept being like, I'm pissy, I'm frustrated. And then my therapist's name is Samir. And then Samir would be like, I would even dare to say that you're angry. And I was like, you can sure say that if you want.
You're like, you said it, not me.
You said it. I'll take your word for it.
You said it. You said it, not me.
But it pissed me off.
Far be it for that to be false, though.
It pissed me off so bad, I'd even dare say it made me angry. That the wall was up so hard that I physically couldn't say it in that moment. I was like, that is a... One of my lights died. I don't think this lighting is bad. But no, it actually like very
Dun,
much...
dun.
I know. Very much took me by surprise that like I couldn't say that. And so back to the vulnerability aspect of it. Like, I think the biggest thing for me, and what I always tell people when I'm like, you should go to therapy because therapy is amazing, is the therapeutic relationship. Because for me, what's been the most like life-changing, I'd say, like regulatory, emotionally, all of that, is the relationship that I have with my therapist, and being the first person that I was ever 100% honest to about even the things that I was scared to talk about, and then being accepted regardless. Because like I was so scared of letting my wall down to anyone, including them, that I'd be like, so this thing happened, and I if you don't want to be my therapist anymore, I totally understand. That would be within your right to do. And he literally had to be like, why would you think that that was something that could possibly happen? And I was like, I just assumed, one fuck up, I'm out, which would be, you're right, I failed you. And at one point he literally was like, would you be mad if I just stopped being your therapist with no notice? And I was like, at you? No, I'm sure I did something to deserve this.
Never, my sweet summer child. No.
But I think like
Me?
I'm already mad at me. It's all good.
The gremlin, the one who can't do a thing right? Obviously, I'm to blame.
We don't like her. No, but I think it's been that positive reinforcement of being able to be a whole person and then still be seen for the whole of who I am. I think a lot of me with vulnerability and a lot of what the wall is feeling like if I make one mistake, that's all anyone's going to see. And the more I practice with vulnerability and the more I let people in, the more I realize that people see me as a whole person. And like, it's so funny because that's the thing I'm scared of the most, is being a whole person, but also like being seen as a whole person is so much easier. It's like when like I have honest, like vulnerable conversations with you, and like you always say this thing that like I really, really appreciate and it's so moving to me, is like, if I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm being such a bummer, and you oftentimes will say, I love hanging out with you, whatever mood you're in. And like that, I think has always meant so much to me, because it's me being like this undesirable, air quotes, emotion or presentation of who I am, and you being like, I see the whole of you and I like the whole of you regardless of that thing. And I think that's something like I inherently have a hard time believing. And so like my want has been practicing that so that I can, I guess my want is getting to, I want to be me, because I know that that's what other people want from me as well. And it's not just me wanting to do it for other people, which would be such a me thing to do. But this time it is me being like, no, I think like I love these people so much and I know they love me so much. And I think we all want me to feel like I can embody personhood in a more full sense.
And I do think that it's okay to start this journey for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, I know you weren't saying that that's not okay. But if it is for acting, if it is for your career, if it's just like the tip of the iceberg, like something to just chip away at the wall, like that's a good enough reason.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the enrichment of my life when it comes to tearing down the wall is also that the more of the wall that comes down, I think the less fear that I hold on to, like the less anxious in general I feel. And so I think that it's just so beneficial to my overall health, my overall perception of my being, and I don't feel like I'm hiding behind a wall. I'm not worried of like being found out that I'm not as strong as my wall makes me seem.
Yeah.
Because the wall's coming down and it doesn't need to be up. And I think that the ways that I have taken down my wall have made me feel more authentic to myself, which inherently gives me more confidence. So
as the wall is coming down, you realize more and more that the world is not ending. And I think there's so much of that feeling that like if the wall comes down, the world will end. And like it's that immersion therapy. It's seeing the confirmation that the world is not ending. It is okay to be a full person. And I agree. Like if you have to do it for other people to start, like you're on the journey. Like I think ultimately like there is a subconscious level too where you're like, I'm going to do this for someone else, but there's probably a part of you that's doing it for you as well. And there's the truth to that.
You want a valid reason to start taking down the wall. And maybe if you do not think that you wanting it is valid enough, that it's helpful to bring in other people. And I do think that the majority of teenagers have some type of wall up. And I think that is something that we continually shed as we get older. And I think that it does come down because it's one, necessary to reach a couple of goals, and then two, we want to because we want to enjoy our lives as fully as we can. And it's tough and it's difficult, and I think that conversation brings us into Q4.
Yes.
Which is any of your wall worth saving? Like, should we keep up some of our wall? Because it's there for a reason. It was there for a reason. And
it is.
Should we keep it up a little bit? Maybe ankle height to our waist? I don't know.
I love this question because it is not something I've ever thought about. I'm so currently and have for many years been in the pursuit of bringing the wall down. And I think like with every brick that gets taken apart, it is like the world does feel more vibrant in so many ways. Like feeling like you can like embody more space and like feeling like a whole person is such a great feeling. I will be figuring this out as I answer it. But I think because the wall is such a part of us, and I think for those of us that have built up a wall, like there is like, it is imbued with our DNA. It is a representation of who you were at that time. And what you went through, and it's, I don't know, I'd almost liken it to like a scar, because I find scars kind of beautiful, where it's like, oh, this is something you went through and then your body healed it. I'm wondering if there's a way where, I guess kind of like in the SpongeBob episode, you can just step around the wall and the wall can continue existing, and it can be a reminder, and it can be like a memorial, like a sacred space for everything you've gone through. So you can also like show it to people and be like, this was hard, but you can also do it. And you can take that experience and like it can be something that you live with symbiotically. Because I think like maybe not like leaving it, I guess like leaving up the wall as an image. Like you take it down and then like you just get to have it there. Like it's like a Lego set. Like you take it down, the real life one, and then you like build up a little tiny Lego one to show people, or I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, and I think I envision this like malleable wall to be situational. You know, once we understand, like, okay, for the majority of my life and what it
like
has
that.
become, like, because like maybe you might not be at a part of your life where you're ready to take down that wall. Like maybe you're in the part where having this wall is still greatly serving you, and we just can't afford to take it down at this point. But if you're at a point where you're like, all right, deconstructed it, I'm gonna save this section though. I'm gonna make it more portable. And maybe you're in an instance where you're like, okay, well, I'm talking to this person. I can't talk to this person without my wall. We gotta have the wall up because that is literally the best thing I can do for myself.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. I think having a situational wall, fabulous. I do think it is hard to navigate sometimes. Like at least it is for me right now. I think that I still knee-jerk reaction to a lot of situations. I want to cower behind my wall. That's where I'm comfortable. It's where I like to be. Yeah. But I know better now, so I have to go, whoa, let's pause. Mm-hmm. Do I need the wall up in this situation? I don't think so. I don't think it's that dire. And so, like, the better I get at that, the more I'll be like, now this is a situation that calls for a wall. Like,
yes, I agree. I think
that's how I see it.
No, I love that actually, because I think that's a fantastic point. I think like that wall should not come down with everyone. Like if we're expressing the wall as like showing like your vulnerable self, like some people aren't worthy of that. Honestly, like you shouldn't trust everybody. That's how you get hurt really bad. Like you should trust some people and know who to let your wall down with. But I love getting to know when and when not it should come up. And I think like that's the practice of it all too, is like you're talking about taking that moment of space of being like, oh, the wall just came up, and then analyzing, why did the wall come up? Do I need the wall to come up? And like that's like shows that you're so like in touch with your emotions. And I think like that is absolutely what you were saying in the goal. Like that's the learnable aspect of this is slowing down. I think what I've learned too with my wall, and like when I'm feeling like I'm doing something knee-jerk reaction, or when I'm doing something to keep myself safe in a situation where maybe I don't need to be doing that, what I'm practicing is slowing down and seeing if the wall has a spot there, or if the wall is just there to keep me comfortable, or if maybe this is a good opportunity to practice not having the wall there. And like that is the practice of it all. If like we're looking for like the learnable aspect of this, is like noticing when you really strongly feel that you need to like put on a face, and deciding whether or not that is authentic to how you're feeling in that moment.
And I think it's a practice in taking rejection, and a practice in trying to be vulnerable and then having it not go so well, and just being like, this was a learning moment.
Yes.
And not in a like, and I punished myself and we gotta reinforce the wall because that went so poorly. Like we gotta practice being like, all right,
yeah,
I guess I gotta move on now.
Because it also sucks. Like, even when you're doing it right, it still sucks. It's a terrible feeling, like at least half the time. You're like, this is so deeply uncomfortable.
And a good indicator of, am I being vulnerable or not? Am I actually making progress or not? Is, are you having a bad time?
Yeah.
Because if you're having a bad time, you're probably making some progress. Like, it gets not good. It gets really uncomfortable. It gets really not fun. It gets like viscerally embarrassing and disgusting, and you're like, oh, I'm never gonna live this down. And then you start to go, oh, all right, well, that wasn't so bad. That wasn't so bad. And then something happens and you go, no. And then you recover, you come back to it, and you try again. And then, you know, you get better at it, and then your life becomes better, and you go, I'm so happy now.
Yes.
I love this.
It's learning more and more. What I tell to the kids I nanny is like, there is no mess that can't be cleaned. And like that recovery time gets faster and faster each time. Like it is so embarrassing. It's like, why am I having a panic attack because I told someone I'm sick and I can't make a commitment today? I am actually sick. Why am I having a panic attack? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like that is so embarrassing. But that is just your body's natural reaction to it, because like you're stepping outside of the wall. And I do feel like every time we practice feeling like that rejection or feeling like we're failing people, like it does get easier to bounce back every time.
It 100% does. And you know what I think a perfect way to close this episode would be?
Yeah.
Is if we take turns saying one thing that someone can do to practice being vulnerable. Just like, quick sentence. So I can go first as an example.
Okay.
I had one. Give me a moment.
No, this is Slay. I'm terrified.
Ask someone for help with anything and do not qualify it. And do not talk down to yourself and be like, because I'm so stupid. Just be like, hey, can you help me with this thing? And try to not put pressure on that statement. Just have it be a moment of, yeah, this is something I need help with and I would like to talk to them about it.
I like that. That sounds horrible. I will have to do that this week. I think a fun practice would be telling someone how important they are to you in kind of a way that like puts you in a position of potential loss, I suppose, is how my brain sees it. And that's why it's vulnerable, of being like, you don't have to say it like this, but this would be the energy of being like, I'd be sad if you were no longer in my life. Like you mean a lot to me. I think that feels very vulnerable kind of thing.
Expressing gratitude.
Yeah. In a very
friendship.
Yeah, being like this is the, I don't know, saying some like way that someone has positively impacted your life. I think like that feels very vulnerable and would be a good way to practice being uncomfortable.
You know, I have a friend who whenever I get off the call with them, they say, proud of you.
Aww.
And I think that's so cute.
I love that. I love that a lot.
And then my thing will be lower stakes than what you just said. If that is too much for you, which it would have been for me at the beginning of my taking the wall down journey, is just compliment someone genuinely.
Yeah.
Don't disparage. If you see someone at the store and you like their outfit, compliment their outfit.
Yeah, I like that. For the sake of vulnerability, I'm really happy you're in my life and this was a great conversation.
It was a fabulous conversation.
And I am grateful to have you because we get to have these conversations together. And that is meaningful to me.
Me too. I feel like colors are brighter every time we chat.
I agree. I was thinking colors are brighter. I wanted to say that at the end of quarter 3. So I'm so happy you said it because I didn't get to say it. Okay.
All right. I think it's time for shameless plugs.
Yeah. Okay. You can find me on Instagram at I am Emma Bruno 2. That's TOO. And you can find me on TikTok at I am Emma Bruno.
You can find me on YouTube and TikTok at rebecca.souden. And then you can find me on Instagram at r.souden.money. And I am now on Substack. And you can find my articles under The Life Ledger.
And you can find our podcast on Instagram at Life in Quarters Pod.
You can listen to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. For example, where are you listening to this podcast right now? And you can also watch this podcast on YouTube.
Yay!